So you've prepared yourself for this interview. You're wearing your finest clothes. You prepare yourself mentally. You learn how to smile, how to look professional. You're a bit nervous. You start sweating a bit, but you feel confident, right? I can do this. And suddenly the recruiter asks you, so could you please tell me about yourself? Dear fellow citizens of the world, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Nick. I'm a career coach. And today we are talking about this crazy question that you've heard so many times, that you've tried to answer, and each and every time, I'm sure you were confused. You felt like you messed up and you went home all desperate about how to answer this question correctly for your next interview. And this is why today I want to give you the most updated version of how to answer this question, especially in 2021. After all the things we've been through for a year and a half, I want you to be able to answer this question with confidence and with flair. So why should you care about this question and how to answer it in the best possible way? Answering this question is essentially making your first impression with the interviewer, with the recruiter. If you don't start strong on this question, they're going to form a very strong opinion about you right away. When you answer this question, you set the tone for the rest of the interview. And don't see it as the interviewer interviewing you, but see it as you and the interviewer having a conversation. So if you're in charge of the answer to this "tell me about yourself" question, you're in charge of the rest of the interview as well. And also, answering this question to the best of your ability will give you the confidence to make sure that you can zoom through the rest of the interview. So let me give you 5 tips to ace this question like nobody else before. First, keep it short and brief. And when I say that, I mean less than 2 minutes. Why you want to keep it short? Because if you start reciting everything that you've been doing for the last 10, 15 years, well, nobody cares. And that's the reality. Nobody cares what you did 15 years ago in a 1 minute or 2 minute introduction. I have your CV in front of me. I want to know you. So you want to make sure that you don't bore the person who might hold your future in their hands. If you bore them after a minute or two, don't expect much from this interview. This is like a pitch. This is not a summary of your resume, of your CV. You are here to answer one single question. So please tell me about yourself. So you might have heard other people tell you, you should explain what you did before each position. Don't do it. If the interviewer, if the recruiter is interested in any step that you took in your career, they will ask you. That's the job, to investigate your career. That's not your job to give them all the details in less than 2 minutes. So instead of listing everything that you've done before, you're essentially creating or giving a picture of who you are, a picture of what you're all about. Think about a commercial. Think about Coke, for example. When you think about Coke, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Red color, fizz, ice cubes. Did you ever think for 1 second about what kind of ingredients are in Coke? How much sugar you have when you drink a can? Well, you should be aware of that, but it's not the first thing you thought about. You didn't think about high fructose corn syrup, phosphoric acid caramel E150D. Yes, it's a real ingredient in Coke. You can check. You didn't think about any of this. You thought about the color. You thought about the feeling. You thought about how it could help you quench your thirst. You didn't think about the ingredients because Coke was selling you a dream. They were not selling you the formula. They were not selling you a list of ingredients. So when you are in this interview and people ask you, so please tell me about yourself, you give them the can, you give them the red color, you give them the bubbles, everything that they want to see and know when they're thirsty for information. Another example, Facebook or any social media that you have right now. What is the first thing that people look at when they get onto your profile? Your picture. They're not interested in knowing where you live, how old you are, what kind of hobbies do you have. This is secondary. This will come later. But the first thing that counts is your picture. In your interview, you show your picture as well. And remember, people are busy these days and they pretty much have the memory of a goldfish. So if you feed them a list of accomplishments of why you did this and such, you're not giving them a picture. Therefore, you don't stand out. So you give them a picture because you want them to remember you. Not only a name, not only a list of accomplishments, but you as a person with all of you. Which leads me to the second point. Let your personality shine. Again, You are somebody, you are unique in your own ways. You got to demonstrate that. You got to show that for people to remember you more than your name, more than your CV. But what kind of energy, what kind of impression did you leave in the room? That's what the recruiter wants to remember from you. Because if they see 15, 20, 25 people in one day or in 1 week, how do you even expect to remember you? You are nothing special. If you didn't answer that question differently, if you didn't answer that question with flair and confidence, they will not remember you. Unfortunately, because you might be the most qualified person in the bunch, but you didn't make that first impression count. And I'm sure you've heard this expression, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I just love it because it is so true. Remember people you met throughout your life, people at school, people at work. I'm sure you remember the first time you met them because maybe they were awkward, they were annoying, they were so friendly. You remember the first time because that was the first impression you got. So you need to show your personality and your communication style, because I talked about soft skills before in the previous video. The soft skills are your communication skills, your leadership skills, and this is what's going to make a difference between two candidates who have the same expertise, the same technical knowledge, same hard skills. So you need to demonstrate that you're on top of that. Not only are you super qualified with this expertise, this technical knowledge, but you are able to convey this information, this expertise with confidence, with effectiveness, and you look friendly when you do it. So when you let your personality shine, you're essentially taking ownership of the room. You are showing the recruiter that you are here not to joke around, not to play, but you are here to get the job. And you're bringing everything to the table. And if you do that, you are already on top of 95% of other candidates, because 95% of other candidates answer the question, so please tell me about yourself, in the plainest possible way. You, on the other hand, you decided to give it a kick. You decided to give it your trademark. And when the recruiter sees that, they will remember you on top of anybody else. But be careful, when I say let your personality shine, you got to stay polite and professional. Don't let your personality shine in a way that who you are on a Sunday morning after getting wasted the night before. No, that's not what I'm saying. But your personality, what people like about you, what people respect about you is exactly what you need to bring to this room, because the recruiter will see that, will remember it, and will take note whether or not they want to give you that job. Now, when you answer this question, show what you've got and what you can bring to the table. And by this, I mean, what are your values? I talked about companies and employees being interested in the bigger picture these days. I'm trying to make an impact. And the company needs to understand your values because they want to know if their values are similar or share something in common with your values. If you guys are not on the same page, don't have the same vision for the future, you can forget it. The company will not hire you. And if they do and make a mistake, you'll know it sooner than later. And your values are tied to your why. I talk about this in a previous video that you can find here. I talk about mindset. I talk about values. I talk about finding your why. And the recruiter, in line with your values, wants to know why you're applying for their company. Why are you here today? If you cannot explain that clearly and demonstrate why you're here, why you want this position more than any other position available, you're not going to make the best impression on the recruiter. And I'm pretty sure that it will be a question anyway during the interview. The recruiter will ask you, why are you applying for this position? So the why defines the bigger picture. And this is so important these days, because think about it. Every time you hear a story, every time a friend asks you a question, your first question is, why? Why do you need so much money? Why do you want to quit your job? We, as human beings, are very curious. We like to understand the reasons, the consequences of things, of situations, and the why question always pops. It is very natural, not only for you, but definitely even more for your recruiter. So when you can answer, why am I applying for this job today, in your self-introduction, you are reassuring the recruiter. And when the recruiter feels a bit more relaxed and safe about talking to you, they will be much more open to listen to your answers during the rest of the interview. So you create this space, you create this comfortable space and safe environment for them to listen to you more. So you create the mood, you create the environment, you're ready to go for more questions. Now, the fourth element you need to talk about is talking about your technical expertise. But again, as I said in the beginning, don't list and mention everything that you've done in your life. It's not a CV. So don't get into details. Give the bigger picture. You just want your recruiter to understand where you've been, where you are right now, and where you want to go. You don't need to give every step along the way. Now, in this case, you can even bring up gaps or inconsistencies in your career that might be an objection for the recruiter later during the interview. So if you want to counter this objection even before it arises, you can include that in this self-introduction. So for example, I used to work in sales, but I realized I'm more concerned about checking facts, checking information, and making sure everything is in line. So I decided to switch to accounting. All right. So you're already explaining why did you move from sales to accounting even before the recruiter asks you during the interview, where you might feel a bit threatened and a bit surprised. So anticipate objections, and that's fine to include them in this personal introduction, because it shows that you can explain a coherent process that you learned from your experience or mistakes, and that you know yourself even better today. The final tip, and the most important, tell a story. And what I mean by telling a story is don't tell them what you did last weekend when you got drunk and you couldn't remember where you lived, but tell them the story of your career in the most fun, entertaining, and effective way. What you try to accomplish by telling a story, you're trying to tease the recruiter. You're trying to make them want more. You're trying to get them guessing about who you are, what you can bring to their company, and how far this interview can go. You're not trying to get the recruiter bored right from the beginning and wonder, when is this interview going to end? You're trying to keep them guessing. And that's the fun part of answering this question. To achieve that, you got to demonstrate empathy. Put yourself in the recruiter's shoes for a second and try to understand what they're going through right now. How many candidates have they been interviewing before you? Are they hungry? Are they stressed by something that's happening on the job right now? And by understanding this, you know that they want something different. So maybe something funny, something entertaining, something energetic, something refreshing. You got to give them all that in your story, because only then they can remember you perfectly. Because believe me, again, 95% of people are not going to be telling an entertaining, fun, and effective story. They're going to be telling a list of accomplishments, not more than that. And if you're boring, plain, and lacking confidence, the interview feels like a real burden on the shoulders of the recruiter. And the only thing they're thinking about is, I want to end this interview as soon as possible. So your story is going to remove all these doubts from the recruiter's mind. Again, when you tell your story, you're creating a picture. So remember, this picture is what sets you apart from most people, because most people haven't considered using a story that the recruiter can remember. So now let me give you an example of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Maybe that'll give you a better idea to crystallize all these 5 tips together. So don't do this one. Could you please tell me about yourself? So I graduated with an accounting degree. I study personal finance. I study financial accounting, managerial accounting. And then I found a job as an accountant. I was doing accounts payable, receivable. I was in charge of the invoicing. And periodically, I was reporting to the upper management. I was doing quarterly and monthly closings. So basically what happened then, I knew I liked accounting. So I found another company where I could use more skills for this position, and everything that I had built in my first position. And then I decided to move abroad because I wanted some more experience on the international market. And again, I found a job as an accountant. And today I'm here and I'm very happy to be here. I think there is a way to improve this one, don't you think? I would say I'm a very organized and self-disciplined person. I've always loved numbers since I was a kid. I vividly remember when my parents would give me my allowance money. I would save it, I would count it, I would keep track of it on a paper. And then, you know, I would dedicate some part of this allowance to buy myself some stickers and candies. I really care about keeping track of numbers and being very organized. So growing up, it only felt natural for me to get into accounting. And that's why I graduated with an accounting degree, because I realized I truly enjoyed the structure of accounting. I like the black and white aspect of things. There's no room for subjectivity, and this is very clear, very thorough, very concise. So in my career, I was able to go from staff accountant to accounting manager, where I learned how to structure data, where I learned how to present data to external stakeholders, when I learned how to manage a team. And all this expertise and experience I acquired naturally led me to think about what I could do next in my career. And this is the reason why I'm applying for this Chief Financial Officer position today. This is the main idea. Don't recite. You're not at school anymore. Nobody cares if you remember what you did 17 years ago and when you started your job, what did you do on your first day? But people care about knowing who you are, what you can do, what you can bring to the company, because people are imagining the future together. If you cannot sell them the dream of the future together, you will never get the position. Let's review again the 5 tips to ace this question. First, keep it short and brief. Don't bore your audience, don't bore the recruiter right from the get-go. Otherwise, they will not care about anything else you're going to say after this question. Number 2, let your personality shine and use your communication style as your proof that you are the right person for this position. The recruiter wants to know that immediately. Number 3, your values must match your employer's value. So tell them what your values are all about. Be authentic and don't lie about it, because during the interview, the goal of the recruiter is to find out if you are telling the truth. So if you're telling that you are very honest, transparent, and then during the interview, the recruiter realizes that you've been lying on your CV, it's not going to cut it. So be authentic, but share your values with passion and with conviction. Now, number 4, demonstrate what skills that you've acquired throughout your life. Explain the skills, but don't get into too many details. The subsequent questions during interview will accomplish that. And 5, the most important, remember, everybody loves stories. You go to the movies, you want to see a story. You read a book, you want to read a story. You need to tell your story in a way that the recruiter will never forget it. Because you are funny, because you are confident, because you are authentic, because you are passionate. Any of these qualities, inject them in your stories, because otherwise you end up in the middle of hundreds of candidates. If you tell your story and if you use those 5 tips, you come on top, guarantee on top of 95% of people who never consider these 5 elements. So what happened the last time you were asked the question, so please tell me about yourself? Do you remember how you felt at that moment? Had you prepared for it? Did you feel like you did a good job answering it? Or did you feel you screwed up? If you don't want to screw up next time, if you want to be super prepared, and if you want to come on top, remember these 5 tips. And for sure, you'll make a great impact in your recruiter's eyes. Practice answering this question and record yourself with a camera. And now look at yourself answering this question. Did you get convinced by your story? Did you even tell a story? You want to make sure you're on point with your story. And when you look at yourself saying it, you feel happy, you feel proud, and you feel like you want to share it with the next recruiter. Let me know about your experience answering this question in the comments below. Send me a message on LinkedIn and share this video to people who are about to go for their next interview. Because if they're freaking out about one single question, this video will definitely help them feel more confident when approaching the next interview. And if you enjoyed the video and find it useful for yourself or people around you, please hit the like button, share it with other people, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. There's more videos coming up about career, personal development, and mindset. Thanks a lot for watching. Remember, experience, experiment, make the journey count. Thank you so much and see you next time in the next video.